Spaces dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It's January 28th. It's a Tuesday, which means the hashtag is Tuesday Thoughts. We're taking your thoughts on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. If it is a thought, if it is a question, if it is a complaint, if it is raging anger, I will take all the thoughts, and we'll try to get through all those as we can throughout the morning. It's kind of that time of year where there's a lot of different kinds of thoughts about where things stand. You've got one preseason game that nobody saw under Atlanta United's belt. Some teams have other preseason games under their belt that maybe have been seen or not been seen, and some have nothing. And some have very little in the way of signings, of excitement, of anything. So it's a weird time of year as there's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of unknown about MLS as a whole right now, and the CBA is a big part of that. I'm seeing just people all over the place, and sometimes it's the same people who are on opposite sides of the there's going to be a strike, there's not going to be a strike, there's nothing to worry about in like a 24-hour period. So, look, there's no way to know. Nobody's really talking. And I know it's a concern, and I know people are freaking out. I'm generally of the mind when it comes to these CBA negotiations that if nobody's talking in a big way here, and the Players Association is not, they have pretty much said the same things consistently about the potential for a strike, but they haven't ramped that up. The league hasn't said anything about a lockout or anything like that. When nobody's talking big and bold at this stage, I take that as a good sign. I take that as a good thing for the league starting on time and all those things. I'd be very, very, very shocked if there is any kind of a delay, even if it means missed training sessions. I'm just not expecting it. Could absolutely be caught by surprise by this because there's so much we just don't know, and there's no way to know because people aren't talking. But, John, I mean, from history and CBA negotiations in most sports, when it's this quiet, that's typically a good sign.
Yeah, think about baseball. Think about the baseball stoppages and concerns and negotiations in the past. The louder folks got from both sides, players, owners, the more that you knew that there was a lot of disagreements and a lot of gap space, and that folks were really concerned about making sure that there was going to be anything resembling a season. So the fact that you don't have folks talking, to me, means that you have, I think that, I'm not going to say they're close, but I'm going to say that they're not going to be in a position like the National Hockey League. They're not going to be in a position like Major League Baseball in the past, because I think that you look at where the league is, and you're at a key moment in the growth of the league, and I think that both sides understand that you don't want to screw this up. And they're going to work toward a solution. If you get to the end of the month, don't be surprised if you hear something of a continuance where they're going to operate under the past CBA until they can come up with a solution. But look at it this way. The louder folks talk, the more disagreement I think they have. Since we're not hearing a whole lot, I would say that there's probably some negotiation that has to go on, but dotting and crossing is probably where you are right now.
I don't know if it's that close, but I don't expect a stoppage. I don't know how close it is. I don't know if you're down to literally that level of detail. It doesn't really sound like they are, but it doesn't sound like there's any hint of a stoppage. I mean,
right.
I think the fear, and I understand it, is that, well, it expires on Friday, so that means everything's shut down on Saturday. Nobody said anything like that. The threat has been about striking to miss games. I don't think anybody's going to skip out on training sessions. I'm not expecting any. I'm not expecting a massive shutdown on Saturday of teams saying, yeah, players didn't show up. I don't think that's going to happen. We'll find out. There's no way to know, and honestly, anybody outside of the Players Association, the league office that is negotiating on this, and reporters with inside sources that you trust, that's it. Everybody else is speculation, including us. I'm just trying to read tea leaves, and the fact that it hasn't gotten contentious yet makes me feel pretty good about a good outcome here. And an outcome where we don't miss anything. But we will find out, and we'll probably find out at least an update, I would expect, in the next couple of days. I think as you get closer to Friday, there's got to be something to give you a hint of where things stand, because everybody knows that the agreement ends on Friday. So I think you'll at least get an update from one side or both about where things stand and what's next. That's the one thing hanging over everything's head when you get into 2020 MLS and preparing for the upcoming season. But teams are moving forward, business as usual, adding players. Chicago Fire have added another left back, because you can never have too many left backs. Maybe you might need other positions, but I'm just saying, Chicago. You now have 4 left backs on your roster, 0 right backs, but again, whatever works for you. Jonathan Bornstein, Jeremiah Guchar, Andre Reynolds II are joined by Venezuelan U20 international Miguel Angel Navarro. Sounds like a good signing. It's just you have a lot of players in that position. Can one of them move over to the right? Not so sure on that, but we'll find out. Because right now, otherwise, you're going to have to move Johan Kappelhoff to the right, which, okay, played some on the right side last year. That's great. But center back, you have Francisco Calvo and homegrown signing Nicolas Slonina. That's it. Can any of these left backs play in the middle? Maybe. Chicago? I just don't know. We'll find out. We're going to go through kind of each of the teams and look at the depth charts and look at positions that maybe they'll still be looking to upgrade in. We're going to do that this morning. We're going to talk about the U.S. men's national team. Greg Berhalter spoke to the media yesterday. They prepare for a match on Saturday against Costa Rica to close out this January camp. And we're going to start with the U.S. women, though. The U.S. women get into Olympic qualifying tonight. And it is going to be on TV in English. That was not known until yesterday morning, which, good job, CONCACAF. Way to get this done. Let's get into the Olympic qualifying, John. I mean, you dig into where the U.S. stands in CONCACAF, it should be a comfortable route through. That's what it's generally been in this tournament. CONCACAF is improving, but you have issues with the teams, honestly, outside of the U.S. and Canada. Jamaica, for example, at the World Cup last year, manager has stepped down. Still all kinds of financial issues with this team. I have no idea what they're going to look like in this competition. There's just no way to know what it's going to look like. In the U.S. group, Costa Rica, Panama, and Haiti should be a comfortable group stage to win that group. Costa Rica, their best performance in this competition is getting to the semifinals in 2012. Panama has not gotten out of the group stage. Haiti has not gotten out of the group stage. This is their second time in, period. So, Costa Rica is the team you're looking at. They have never been to an Olympics. They have been to a Women's World Cup, but the qualifying for the Olympics, it's such a difficult one to get to because you're only getting 2 out of CONCACAF. Yeah. And you would think that going in, it's U.S. and Canada that are your favorites. Don't discount Mexico, especially if it ends up being a U.S.-Mexico semifinal for a spot in the Olympics. And that's what it's going to come down to. Top 2 in the knockout stage or in the group stage go to the knockout round. The semifinal winners go to the Olympics. And there is a final. There is a champion of this tournament. But 2 go, your semifinal winners go. That's it. No margin for error once you get to that stage. I mean, early on, I think you're predicting U.S. and Costa Rica 1-2 in Group A, Canada, Mexico 1-2 in Group B. You do have to keep an eye on Jamaica, but these issues off the field, I think, are going to make it difficult. Mexico comes in pretty fired up after a poor World Cup qualifying campaign last time out, and they didn't make it. So I think they do get out of the group stage, and I think they give the U.S. a run for their money.
Yeah, and I know that Costa Rica is going to be looking back at what happened in November and using that as bulletin board material with a 6-0 loss. You look at FIFA rankings, Costa Rica right now at 34. So you want to talk about motivation. I know that certainly Costa Rica will have it. I know that everybody, though, is still looking at chalk and favorites making their way into the semifinals.
Yeah, I think you have to, because there's a big gap here. This is a great competition for teams like Haiti, teams like St. Kitts and Nevis, who get an opportunity to participate. It's going to raise the level of their programs. St. Kitts, it's the first time they've been in this competition. The others, it's second time. So this is part of the process, and you're going to get 3 games in it, which is great for those countries. U.S. and Canada should be in the pole position here, although Canada, in my opinion, has had a pretty disappointing last half of the decade. The World Cup that they hosted in 2015, I think the pressure was too much for them. They didn't perform at the same level they had at the previous World Cup and at the previous Olympics. It didn't get any better. It feels like a team that is just a little stagnant, and I'm curious to see if Mexico can cause some damage to them. Now, they face off in the final group stage match, and that's the other interesting thing about the way the schedule works out. It's basically for the favorites, you play in order of weakest opponent to strongest in your group. So the U.S. will start with Haiti. They'll get Panama next. Then they get Costa Rica in the final group game. Canada starts with St. Kitts. Then they get Jamaica. Then they get Mexico. Canada's the one that I look at, and I wonder if there's a potential for an upset.
And, yeah, I mean, you see their body of work, and, I mean, flatline, plateau. I mean, I'm trying to think of the right adjective here, but there hasn't been growth or improvement or whatever word you want to use. There hasn't been, I guess, a build-up into the tournament that I think you would be looking for when you're looking at Canada. So, yeah, to your point, I think that they might be the one that might get nipped.
I think they're the one that have the greater risk for it. They shouldn't. They are, in my opinion, a more difficult opponent for Mexico than what Mexico threatens Canada. But Mexico is a country that has really started to embrace the women's game. We've seen the investment in the league, and that's going to have a huge payoff down the line. And it's something that, if you're looking at CONCACAF countries with potential growth in the women's game, Mexico has to be at the top of the list.
I was going to ask.
Because you're getting these competitive matches at the league level in front of good crowds. And you're feeling that pressure, and you're having to perform, and now the competition has more meaning, and that's going to push you to get better. I really think that they're the ones who could take the biggest jump. Now, do they get to the U.S. level in the next cycle? It's a huge ask. Can they get to Canada's level in the next cycle? It's possible. When you look at the top Canadian players like a Christine Sinclair that are getting later in their careers, and you just wonder where the next generation is in Canada, because it hasn't really emerged yet on a regular basis. I'm looking at them in this tournament in a big way, and I want to see how they get through the first 2 games. They need to make a bit of a statement in this competition.
Yeah, and I was going to ask about, I mean, I'm one of those guys where I will watch Liga MX Femenil because, I mean, it has made a big deal, and we talked about this yesterday, where TUDN and Univision, they're making it a big deal. And TUDN putting time away on Mondays where they're showing double headers. You see the level of engagement increase. You see the level of investment increase. And that's why I keep drifting back to Mexico as that possible idea of, okay, who could be a surprise? But because of what we've seen in the level of the game increase and improve, I'm not necessarily all that surprised because we're seeing this growth and we're not seeing it out of Canada. So that's why I keep drifting back to that idea of Mexico over in the other group.
Canada, since the World Cup, because they came into the World Cup on an unbeaten run in 2019, some good wins in there. They beat England in Manchester. They drew with Spain, which is a better result than you might have thought. Spain showed pretty well at the World Cup. They didn't really play a ton of top teams in the lead up. They beat Norway early in 2019. They won their first 2 World Cup matches, beat Cameroon 1-0, not all that impressive. Beat New Zealand 2-0, little more impressive, but New Zealand wasn't very strong. Then they lost to the Netherlands, which is a team that went to the final, so you can't feel too bad about a 2-1 loss there. Lost to Sweden 1-0 in the round of 16. That ended the tournament for them. 2 friendlies after that. Lost 4-0 in Japan, to Japan in October. Lost 4-0 to Brazil in a tournament in China in November. Beat New Zealand 3-0 in the second game of that tournament in China. Since the World Cup, 1-4. And that has to be a big question mark as you come into this. They've got this tournament. They are the favorite to advance along with the U.S. I want to see if Mexico can push them. That's the biggest question for me in this tournament.
Mm-hmm. And once again, it circles back to everything that we've seen. The evidence lends itself more toward Mexico than it does for Canada, and that's outside of looking at the U.S.
Let's hold on a second. I don't know if it does. I don't know if I'd say the evidence says Mexico's going to go through, because recency for me is lending itself to, I guess, being more prepared for being ready to make that next step. I guess. No, I'm going to tell you why.
Right.
They lost 6-0 and 4-0 to Brazil in their last 2 games. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's not a definite just because Canada's struggling that Mexico goes through. Mexico has to raise their level. I think Canada's vulnerable, and that's the issue here, is that in the past it felt like, okay, obvious U.S., Canada, that's who's going through, no questions, no even risk. Now I think Mexico is going to push in to create some risk. I think Costa Rica can present some risk as well. It's not as clear-cut, but Canada comes in as the favorite. I mean, Mexico, since July of last year, they lost to Paraguay 2-1. They drew with Colombia 2-2. They beat Panama 5-1. And then 2 losses to Brazil 10-0 in aggregate. It hasn't been incredibly impressive there either. I think the talent has improved. I think there's still a lot to do in terms of building a program. So let's not put Canada on the definite upset list just yet, but they're vulnerable.
I have them as a concern about that.
Yeah, I think that's a safer way to put it. They should get through here, but I think they'll definitely get into the semifinals. But the question will be, does Mexico pull an upset in that final group game? Because if they do, what that creates is the potential for a U.S.-Canada Olympic berth on the line, which is not what the United States wants. You don't want that game because, one, you've got some rivalry to it. Canada knows your team inside and out. They're not afraid to get physical with you. They can present some challenges. You don't want that game there. You want, if you play Canada in the final after you're both going to the Olympics, cool, fine, it's a good test. You don't want your Olympic berth to come down to a match like that where there is a higher risk for an upset. Even if Canada's vulnerable, if they get there, they're coming off of a loss in the group stage. They'd be coming in with a big point to prove and a lot of pressure on them. You don't want your Olympics to come down to one game like that.
Yeah, when you look at the Canada roster, yes, Christine Sinclair's at the top, and I think there are 8 other players, if you watch the NWSL, who are attached to teams in the NWSL. And you want to use that as a narrative. Mexico only has 2 that are in the NWSL, but no, you want to make sure that your berth is in the barn before you play Canada, barring that upset in the semifinal round. You definitely do.
Yeah, on top of the players in NWSL, Canada has players playing in Lyon and PSG, Manchester City, and West Ham. So they've got players playing in some different places around the world that are going to be a problem. It's the next generation for me with Canada that has to start coming through.
Agreed.
Jesse Fleming is a player that a lot of people have been waiting on to become one of the best in the world. It hasn't quite happened yet. Kadisha Buchanan, who's at Lyon, is one of the best players in the world. She has to continue to be that at 24 years old. It's that next generation. Who's going to become the goal scorer after Sinclair? And, Sinclair's got this tournament, I think, and that's going to be it for her at 36 years old. Is it going to be Janine Becky, who's at Manchester City? Is it going to be Adriana Leon, who's at West Ham? Who is going to step up as the next face of this team? Is it going to be Fleming? I think a lot of people have expected that. This is a tournament for Canada where they have to, I think, get back to being the number 2 team in CONCACAF. It's kind of similar to the U.S. men's national team in that, now there's a bit of a question. Canada still should be there. I think the U.S. still should be the number 2 on the men's side, but they haven't defined that clearly enough yet. And Canada doesn't have quite as much challenge as the U.S. men to hold that spot, but you've got teams coming. Mexico is on the rise. I think Costa Rica is on the rise. You had Jamaica get to the last World Cup, and I think it's just disorganization at the federation level. That's the problem with them. And you're going to see more coming out of CONCACAF. That's why these competitions are important. But Canada's got to maintain that spot. And I think Canada honestly needs to find the way to get back to where they're challenging the U.S. on a regular basis. I don't think they're there right now. But they got to start with getting this tournament under their belt, getting the qualification, getting an Olympic Games under their belt, and then building the team around that next generation in the next cycle.
So then let me ask you this. How can we pose the same question somewhat to the women's national team and trying to find out where that next generation of players are going to be and where they're going to come from?
On the U.S.
because of
side?
because of the age and experience that we're seeing in this side when it comes to that next generation of players and giving them reps and getting prepared for the next World Cup cycle and such. Where do you think the women's national team is when it comes to trying to find those newer players that could be around for the next, say, decade?
Well, a lot of them are in the mix already. I mean, you're going to build around a midfield of Lavelle, Horan, 24, 25 years old. Ertz is 27. Andy Sullivan, I think, coming into this team at 24, that's part of the thinking on Vlatko Andonovski. Sam Mewis is 27. When you look at the next World Cup and Olympic cycle, that's why it's a little confusing on the women's side, because the next World Cup will be in 23, next Olympics 24. So you get past this one, then you start to look at that next cycle. That midfield all will be part of the team throughout the next cycle. Mewis, Sullivan, Ertz, Horan, Lavelle. Lynn Williams, I think, has the potential to be a big part of this next cycle. She's 26. How long is Kristen Press at 31, Tobin Heath at 31, Jess McDonald at 31? How long are they going to get into the next cycle? I think they'll be part of the journey. I think they can be part of that next World Cup team potentially. I mean, let's remember Megan Rapinoe had the year she did at 34. Is Rapinoe, Carly Lloyd going to be part of this next cycle? Not at the end of it. I don't think so. I don't think Rapinoe will be there at the end of it. Lloyd, I think the Olympics could be her last competitive tournament for the national team. You look at the back line. Abby Dahlkemper, 26. Emily Sonnet, 26. She needs to step up and become a player that you count on. Sauerbrun's 34. Sonnet needs to step into that role. Kelly O'Hara's 31. She's had a number of injuries. Is she going to be able to go through another 4-year cycle? We'll find out. Allie Krieger was a surprise getting in here. I don't expect her to continue past the Olympics if they get there. Crystal Dunn's 27. Goalkeepers, Alyssa Nair's 31. Goalkeepers, it's a little bit different situation, so I would expect she'll be able to continue through and get pushed by Adriana French, who's 29. Ashlyn Harris at 34. Maybe she steps away after the Olympics. We'll find out. You start to look outside of that roster. So that's the Olympic qualifying roster. You could see changes before you get to the Olympics. Let's start with goalkeeper. Jane Campbell, Houston Dash, pushing through at 24. She's got 3 caps under her belt. I think she'll be part of the mix in this next cycle. Defenders. Tierna Davidson was part of the World Cup roster at 21. She's had some injuries. She'll definitely be part of it. Midge Purse with Sky Blue. She's got 1 cap. She's 24. She's on the rise. Alana Cook at PSG. 1 cap at 22. Imani Dorsey. No caps yet. She's been in some camps. 23 years old. You've got a young core coming on the back line. There's more who were part of this December camp that Vlatko Andonovski had to look at that next generation. Keep an eye on players like Haley Mace, who's with North Carolina Courage this year. Sarah Golden, who's a little bit older, but maybe has been overlooked in the past with the Chicago Red Stars. You've got a couple college players like Macy Bell, who's 19, Malia Berkeley, who's at Florida State, 21, Kiera Pickett, 20 years old at Stanford. Emily Fox has 3 caps under her belt at 21. She's still at North Carolina. You've got players coming through. You've got this interesting mix with a new manager where you're going to see the young players come through into the next cycle that maybe would have happened anyway. But players like Casey Short at 29, who's got 31 caps, who's maybe been on the outside looking in, I think she'll get a fresh look. I think Merritt Mathias will get a fresh look. She's only got 1 cap. She's 29. I think some of those older players who maybe haven't had the opportunity will get a fresh opportunity with a new manager. Midfield. So Morgan Bryan is only 26. She's had injuries. She was part of the last World Cup team. She's not part of this Olympic qualifying team right now. She has a big opportunity going back into NWSL in Chicago and standing out. McCall Zerboni, 33. This might have been her last opportunity. We'll see. She's moving to Sky Blue, and I'll be curious to see what her career ends up in NWSL this season, because that's a big change for her. Danielle Colaprico is 26 at Chicago, 2 caps. And you've got a number of midfielders who are still in college as well. Same type of schools, North Carolina, Florida State, Jalen Howell at Florida State, Brianna Pinto at North Carolina. Up top, Mallory Pugh is a player that people are expecting to be a big part of the next cycle. She's got 62 caps at 21 years old. She's not part of this Olympic roster. She'll be part of this next cycle in a big way, I would think. Kristen Hamilton came on in a big way with the North Carolina Courage this past year. She's 27. Right now she's playing over in the W League. She'll be back once the NWSL season starts. She's only got 1 cap. I think she's a player who will take advantage of some of the opportunities. Alex Morgan, not part of this Olympic qualifying roster. She is pregnant. She's 30 years old. She could be back before the Olympics. But at 30, I do think she'll be part of this next cycle if she wants to be. I think she's going to have that opportunity in front of her. Up top, maybe there's not quite as much in that role, in that number 9 role. There's not as many players that are right there. I think Hamilton is one. Jess McDonald will be around for a while and will push. Lynn Williams, potentially, different kind of player. Mallory Pugh, a little bit more of a wide player. I think that's the spot that you're looking at this next group to come through, and you've got a number of college players that are starting to come through at 20, at 21, at 22. Somebody has to step above the group, and we'll see. But there's a lot of young talent coming, and I think with a fresh manager, with a fresh look at things, probably some tactical refreshing, I think the U.S. is fine. It's going to be down to Vlatko Andonovski to craft this group, which is a tough job because you're going to have a good bit of turnover, but that's why he was the one who was hired, because a lot of players have been very happy to work with him and have seen their games grow.
And that was why I wanted to ask about the younger players who could be a part of that next wave because of Carly Lloyd, Megan Rapinoe, Sauerbrunn O'Hara, et cetera, those that are on the north end of 30 and might be on their way out after this cycle. That was why I wanted to ask about those who are either in college, might have gotten a look here or there, and that was why I wanted to present the question.
Yeah, there's a lot coming. I mean, the college game continues to grow. It's going to still be a big part of developing women's soccer players for the professional game and for the national team. That's not going to go away. The NWSL needs to continue to grow and be an option for some players to come out of school earlier to continue that development. The financials have to be there to make that a reasonable request, and we'll see if that continues to grow. This next cycle is a big one on the U.S. side because you're going to have that turnover, but I think the NWSL could look very different before the next World Cup, and that's going to create more opportunities, not just for U.S. players, but the majority of the players who benefit will be players who can represent the U.S. I think other CONCACAF countries could benefit from that. Other countries around the world will benefit from that as the NWSL grows. It's able to spend more money on salaries and presents more of an opportunity for players to develop. It's going to be a fun next cycle on the women's side, and this is kind of the in between. It's the conclusion of this current cycle. It's going to be, an Olympics where you would expect the U.S. to take Carly Lloyd, to take players that maybe even announce their international retirement before the tournament, and it becomes a bit of a send-off. Maybe there's a send-off series or something afterwards. I don't know. A lot of times they do a victory tour or something. It could turn into that, the closing of a bit of a chapter. We've seen it before. I think it might be what happens here, and it gives Vlatko Andonovski a wide-open runway to 2023 and getting ready for that tournament.
What else is on your mind early this morning?
Well, let's get into the Twitter right now because there's been a lot of questions that have been piling up. So let's see what the people are thinking on a Tuesday.
Keaton Thomas, what are your thoughts on the new away kit that's been leaked for Atlanta United this year? How would you design it, and what would it look like? Hashtag
you don't
Tuesday
want me
thoughts.
designing anything. You don't want me designing things. I'm not a designer. I like it. It looks clean. It looks good. I'm not, on the all white kits are bad. I don't ever want to see a white kit. I want to see a good one, and I think this is a good one. I am curious as a broadcaster to see what the numbers look like on the back on it. I've kind of given up really getting worked up about it because it is what it is, and it's going to be what it is, and they're not going to listen to me about it. That's fine. It would be nice if they were gold with a black outline. That outline would be very important. So, if you have an opportunity to do that MLS number set, it'd be great. I don't think I've seen anything with an outline on the new numbers, so probably not going to happen. But I think it looks good. I think it will be a very popular kit. I like the subtle kind of wavy design that's into it, so it looks good. I'm good with it.
Now, I have not seen this, so I'm going off of what...
Been?
No, not the kit. Next question. Sorry, okay. I've seen the kit. No,
okay,
the dark outline on the numbers would help broadcasters out immensely.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Next question, comma. I have not seen this, comma, so I will go with what Emery is saying. Emery Russell this morning. After seeing the video from Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, there's speculation they'll be installing safe standing optional seats. Do you think Mercedes-Benz would ever be able to pull this off?
I don't think they're installing safe standing. I don't know where the speculation started, but if I remember right, it's just part of the renovations they're doing there. I don't think there's an NFL venue that has any kind of safe standing.
No.
Correct me if I'm wrong. And that will be an NFL venue, and Mercedes-Benz will be an NFL venue as well. So I think that's why you won't have it. I think it can be good. I think a lot of people get worked up about safe standing I don't know why. I mean, I get people who would be in that section and want that. Okay, cool. But it's kind of a small section, and it always would be. So I don't think there's the concern in the United States that, prompted all seaters in England when that happened decades ago. I don't think there's the concerns about safety with safe standing. Could be wrong. We'll find out as you see some MLS venues going to it. I don't expect it in multi-use venues. And I don't think there's been anything said about safe standing in Charlotte. I think it's been people looking at pictures and speculating, and that can get you in trouble.
Nick
Not
Lanfear this
just
morning.
saying it can get you in trouble in terms of actually knowing what's going on.
Yes. Nick Lanfear. What are your expectations for the club and its key players for this upcoming season? He has other stuff, but that's his first question.
I mean, the expectation is to win trophies. I think that's always the expectation. So nothing's really changed in that regard, and I don't think it should. In terms of individual players, you look at this roster, and I think Pity Martinez is one that a lot of people are looking at for a big season. I think he's probably looking at that himself. He's a player who has a lot of expectation for 2020, and I would like to see him be a double-digit goal scorer, assist man, at least a 10 and 10. I think he's got that in him. Tito Villalba, I think there's expectation, especially after the Julian Gressel trade, because there's an opening for playing time that maybe wasn't there before. So having seen what we've seen from him in the past, you want to see that again, and you want to see that consistently. Barco, I think it's just staying healthy. I mean, it's been a little bit out of his control with some of the issues he's had and some of the numbers he's had that people want to point at. He's had injuries, and it hasn't been injuries that he could really do much about. So hopefully he stays healthy. The midfield, I want to see, one, if we see any additions and when they might happen, and what ends up becoming the primary look. Because I think we'll see a lot of different looks. And that's one of my expectations this year, is a team that's very versatile, very diverse tactically. But in the midfield, who's going to end up getting the majority of the minutes? Is Jeff Larentowicz a guy that you can look to for 2,400 minutes? Is he going to get that much time on the field? Is he going to be able to hold that spot? Is Mo Adams going to push for more time? That's something I'm expecting will happen. I think Mo Adams will be on the field more than most people expect this year. Emerson Hyndman, I think a lot of people are looking at him with more time consistently with Darlington Nagbe gone. Can Hyndman take advantage of that? Can he get back to a player that was seen as one of the most promising in the United States when he was at the U20 World Cup and captaining that squad and was in Europe and was playing? Can he get back to that? I think he can. I think he has the ability. I don't think he's lost it. But he's got to perform consistently because he's going to be pushed. Adams wants time. Larentowicz doesn't want to be on he doesn't want to give up his spot. He wants to be on the field. Eric Remedi wants to play more like he had up until about the middle of last season. He had a bad run of form. It was the worst run of form we had seen from Remedi since he came to Atlanta. Wouldn't expect that is the norm. So can he hit the ground running? Who's going to end up winning those position battles in the midfield? Because everybody from the club has said that they've wanted to bring somebody else in. All right, when you add that name into the mix, then it's going to be even more competition for spots. The back line, I think we know what to expect from Miles Robinson. You're looking for continued development. You're looking for continued development out of Escobar. Maybe a little more leadership out of Franco Escobar. I think he'll have that potential to be a very important part vocally of this group. Brooks Lennon is kind of in the Emerson Hyndman question. Can he get back to where he had that, one of the most promising young American players? And he showed a lot of that in 2018 at RSL, and 2019 wasn't the same. Was that him? Was that a falling out with the manager? Was that a bad run of form? Was it the emergence of a player behind him? What was it? we'll get a chance to see potentially what he can do in this group, because I think his skill set's a great fit for it. Can George Bello get you, 20, 25 starts? Can he be that kind of player and put together consistent back-to-back strong matches? Because that's always the hardest thing for teenage players. It's one thing to step up and have one big game. It's, can you do it then the next night? Can you have a good performance on Saturday and then get ready for a game on Wednesday where you're flying across the country? Can you be ready to deal with that level of stress, physical and mental? That's what Bello has to get to, because we've seen good performances, but can we start to string them together? That's a quick run through the roster. I mean, there's players that are on the outside. George Campbell, how much are we going to see him in first team 18s? Are we going to see him in Open Cup play? Is he going to get 20, 25 starts with Atlanta United too? How does his development continue? How much do we see Anton Walks, Adam John, Luis Fernando, Jake Mulroney, guys who are probably in more depth kind of roles? How much do we see them? I think when you go through the lineup and you go through the roster, if you're seeing a lot of them, it's either they stepped up in a huge way and made Frank de Boer have to put them in. There's injuries that are making them have to get these spots, or there's a loss of form from somebody that you expect to be getting a lot of minutes. And Walks, Mulroney, John, Luis Fernando, those guys are important because they keep the guys in front of them honest. They keep them working hard. They keep the pressure on them. And they're good enough to where if you have a slip or if you have an injury, they can step in and do the job. So the depth is good. I think you're going to go in with more of an understanding of what Frank de Boer wants from day one. Good. It's trophies. It's always trophies with Atlanta United, but it's trophies, and it's some of the players that have either had inconsistency or just a rough time in the last year due to injury in a lot of cases, getting back to what we've seen consistently from them.
Nick says he anticipates the club pushing to add another star to the kits and add at least one trophy. PT and Barco each have a big season, and one of them gets sold in the summer window. He also says he's anticipating Joseph to do Joseph things.
You can't predict sales in the summer window. I think you can't predict sales, period, honestly. A player like Ezequiel Barco is not going to finish his career in Atlanta United. I think that's a safe assumption. If he does, he's coming back after a move because he is a talented player. He's a special player. He will play in Europe. Does that move happen in the summer? If the price is right, that part's out of Atlanta United's control. It's out of Ezequiel Barco's control. If it happens in the summer, if it happens next winter, if it happens the following summer, it's going to happen at some point. He's too good of a talent for it not to. So, when? There's no way to predict it, and I'm not going to try to. Pitti, I think, is a different case. Pitti is a player who would be, I think, looked at in a different way from a European club. He can step into a lot of clubs and play straight away. And there's a lot of clubs where he's not a good fit. He's a player that you do have to account for when you're building your roster because you want him to be as free as possible. And that doesn't mean completely free of responsibility, but you want him to be as free as possible because you want him to do what he does best. And you have to build a team to make that work. I think Atlanta started to find that balance both from Pitti himself, the players around him, and Frank de Boer having a good understanding of what he brings to the table late in the season. And as we saw against New England, that wasn't the greatest matchup, so he was available off the bench. But we saw other strong performances around that. And I think Pitti will be a strong part of Atlanta United in 2020. If he has a big year, will there be interest? Yeah, I think there will. I think there's a lot of clubs that would like to have a player Pitti Martinez's caliber. Just don't know when. Barco, at his age, sooner rather than later. I'd be surprised if he's still here summer of 21. But I don't know which window he goes in. Pitti, it's hard to say. It could be this summer if there's a club who wants that kind of player, needs to replace that kind of player. Could be next winter, could be the following summer. It's very hard to tell with a player like Pitti because he's more of a proven article. You know what he is as a player. You know what he's capable of. Barco has still got a lot of potential to get even better. So for both of them, I would never predict that they're going to go in a certain window because there's just no way to know. The worldwide market's so volatile and so unpredictable, and clubs that you think will be busy might not be, and clubs that you thought wouldn't be busy might have a couple sales and then start spending a lot of money. So it's impossible to predict.
JB United with a couple of questions this morning. Who will the team put out in front for all their social media posts now that LGP and WrestleMania have moved on? All Joseph all the time?
They've put a lot of people out. I mean, LGP and Gressel were part of that, but they've put a lot of people out for their stuff. No, I don't think it'll be all Joseph all the time because I think he might start smacking cameras if that's the case. I don't think he wants that. I think you'll see Tito like you have. I think you'll see Remedi like you have. Potentially you'll see more of Miles Robinson. The mic'd up piece was really good to hear more of Miles on the field. I think he's one that might get more of that. I think you could definitely see more of Brad Kazan, Brooks Lennon, Mo Adams potentially, Emerson Hyndman potentially. It'll be spread around. I don't think it's down to one guy replacing two in the social media lineup because I never felt like it was all LGP, all Gressel all the time anyway.
Then the second question from JB is, what new taglines can we expect from @MikeConti929?
We'll see what happens. We'll find out starting in Birmingham. I don't know. This isn't something that's manufactured, really. I mean, he's told the story about the Gresselmania one, and Grant McCauley at 92.9 at the time mentioned it, and Mike ran with it. That's pretty rare. Most of the time, stuff just happens in matches with us. And things just stick, or things happen and they're said, and they might get said a couple times and then they fade away. So it's organic. So there's nothing that's being written down. We're not workshopping catchphrases right now.
You're not allegedly Jim Nance?
No. That's not what we do. I mean, what he does is very different. So I will. I don't want to throw shade.
William M. at Dr. McLaney on Twitter. How stoked are y'all to see De Boer's total voetbal in full swing this year? I would suggest for anyone interested in the Dutch soccer mindset and history of the game to read Brilliant Orange by David Venner. Great read, and Frank is mentioned in it as well. #Tuesday Thoughts.
Yeah, it's a great read. Not even as much about the tactics, but about the personality and understanding the mentality, because it's different. I don't think it's going to be just a carbon copy of Rinus Michels or Johan Cruyff or Louis van Gaal. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think you have a manager in De Boer who has a good bit of experience in a lot of different places now and with a lot of different kinds of groups. And, as much as people want to pile on about Inter Milan and Crystal Palace, I think he learned from those situations, and that's helped him here. And he went through some great things at Ajax, and he went through some challenges at Ajax. That's helped him here as well. And in this group has helped him learn and develop, because it's a very different group. I mean, it's a very different type of league. It's a very different competition, but the actual personalities of the group are probably a little bit different for him. And he's adjusted. I thought his performance last year as a manager from day one to the final day got better and better and better. I think he understood his group. I think he understood them quicker than people gave him credit for, but he understood what buttons needed to be pushed as the year went on with the tactics and with the substitutions, and that was very important. I would expect that that's going to be even better from day one this year. So it's not going to be just this carbon copy of previous Dutch teams or total football. I think it's going to be a modern combination of what Frank has learned as a player at Ajax, at Barcelona, and at others, what he learned from mentors and managers that he's looked up to from the Dutch school that are from opposite sides of it, like Johan Cruyff and from Louis van Gaal. I think he's finding his way, and that's not easy because in the Dutch school, and this is something that Brilliant Orange gets into, and other books you read and other bits you read about the development of the game in the Netherlands. Those two, in Cruyff and Van Gaal, are seen as opposites. They're not. They're actually not that different. But it's kind of like you've seen in Argentina with Bilardo and Menotti, two managers that you're one or the other. You're a Menotti follower, you're a Bilardo follower, and that's it. And that's not how it works because Bielsa came in and did something different, and he took things from both. I think what Frank will do as he continues to improve and evolve is take elements from both. Because you have the freedom and the creativity of the Cruyff system, and you have the organization and the structure of the Van Gaal system. And they're both needed. And you need to find the balance between the two. And I think that's what Frank started to find as the year went on last year. And I think he's going to find that even more this year, now that he knows the league, now that he's been able to bring in some players that he's probably had a hand in saying, I like what this player could bring to the group. I like this guy. Let's get them in here. Now you have the pieces, both the understanding of the existing pieces and some new pieces, to find that balance. I think it's impossible for any manager to come in at this stage and have a brand new, completely way of playing. Like they you can't compare it to anything that's ever happened. It's just not the case. Like, things have been done. I mean, people try to say that Guardiola's done that Klopp's done that. Both of them would say, no, we learned from this manager. We learned from this. We took this and adapted it. It's always evolving, but there's nothing completely brand new. So that's what Frank de Boer is doing, is he is finding, I think, the modern interpretation of that total football system. Because, I mean, you look at the 74 Dutch team, and you look at the way they pressed, I don't think you could do that now. You'd get killed. You'd get shredded. It was such a surprise at that point that when you've got 6-7 guys running at the guy with the ball, it's like, what? and it just, you can't do that anymore. The game has progressed past that. So it can't be exactly that, but can it bring elements of it? Yep. Can it also bring that structure of the 95 Ajax team that Frank was a defender on, and Marcelo Bielsa has said is the most organized team in the history of the sport? And that was a Louis van Gaal team that won the Champions League. Can you bring structure and have anarchy? Because that's what you're trying to blend. It's not easy, and I think it's finding that balance that will serve him well. So it won't be, in my opinion, total football in a traditional sense. It will be a modern interpretation of it. And I want to see how it continues to evolve for Frank.
Tafka with a question this morning, and I'll take the end of it and put it at the beginning. God willing, we advance. Do we know definitely that MBS is or is not available for second round of CONCACAF Champions League?
No, nothing's been said. I think we know the dates that the Final Four prep will start, and the fear is that I think those dates start before the game with Club America would be at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but nothing has been said that, no, it can't be played there, or yes, it will definitely be played there. So I don't think anybody is just sitting on their hands waiting to see if you get past Motagua before you address that situation. But are you going to make that public? No. You're gonna get through Motagua first. I would like to think, and maybe this is just wishful thinking on my end, that there are things you could do in that prep behind the scenes that would allow you to still have the building open for that game that's a couple days into that cycle. I would hope that there's enough that can be done. Maybe you have to move locker rooms around. Maybe you have to not be in the normal locker room, stuff like that. I would hope that there's enough you can do. And I would imagine that everybody would be trying to make that happen. So just have to wait and see. I mean, these are the hard things about a venue that is used for multiple things. There's so many great things that come out of it. But yeah, these challenges do arise. And it's not like it's a small event that's not going to be good for the venue. It's kind of a big deal. So you have to manage it, and you have to try to find a solution. So nobody has said either way, like, yes, it's definitely going to happen, which I'm not surprised that hasn't happened, and even if it does, or no, it can't happen. So that's where you're at.
Follow-up, he says, the question, it seems stars on kits may be on the way out. Shrug shoulders emoji. At
no,
minimum,
why is anybody saying that?
Don't know.
Whoa. Why is anybody saying stars on kits? Because just saying stars on kits is on the way out is a very broad statement, because it's not anywhere in the world. So explain, because I have no idea what that's supposed to mean.
He says at minimum on replicas.
Well, that's generally been the case forever. Like on replicas, the star's not there. On the authentic, it is. That's been the case with MLS kits for maybe decades. At least the last 15, 16 years, because I've seen them. I've seen those differences between them. Nothing's changed.
Yeah, he says he's pro star and would gladly just buy some patch fabric stars and have them sewn on.
Yeah, they were never on replicas, though. Not in the Adidas world of MLS, and I don't think they are in most places around the world. That's why you have the two things, and you're trying to get more money for the one that's truly authentic. So, welcome to business. It just is what it is. But no, I don't think there's anything about stars being out. I have not seen anything like that.
I've got a programming update, as a matter of fact.
Well, why don't you want to save the programming update for the other side?
Yeah, let's save the update to the other side.
Okay, we'll be right back after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here, January 28th. Tuesday Thoughts. We're taking your Tuesday Thoughts on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. They can be about stars on kits. They can be about goal scoring. They can be about lineup choices. We're going to get into where MLS stands, which teams are desperate to make some moves, which teams have giant holes in their depth chart. We'll get into all that in hour number 2 as well. But first, and I'm going to give you some musical accompaniment for your programming updates. And if things want to work for me. Of course they don't want to work right
Mood
now.
music.
Yeah. Here we go. All right. Tell us about your programming updates, John.
I'm down with this.
You grooving?
I'm grooving.
Okay.
Can now add another game to the SDH Game of the Week. I feel like I have to do this almost like Blue Balls.
No, that'd be weird.
Tuesday. March 10th. North Spring. Riverwood. Add to the schedule.
I don't think anybody actually heard that, so why don't you go again?
Going to Riverwood. Tuesday, March 10th. North Springs and Riverwood.
What impression
we now
are you
have
doing, by the way?
Just like a Lou Rawls or a Barry White kind of a soul. drop a little soul in the flow this morning.
Okay.
So we now have 8 matches, 8 doubleheaders set up for the schedule, and it is starting off the SDH Game of the Week. Will be at North Gwinnett, Tuesday, February 4th for the Norcross doubleheader. Friday, February 21st, we will be at Harrison High for Pope and Harrison. Tuesday, March the 3rd, we'll be at Roswell for Parkview and Roswell for that doubleheader. March 10th, North Springs and Riverwood. And then we're on the road. We go to Dalton, March 24th. Sprayberry and Dalton in region play at Bill Chappell. It's Harmon Field and Chappell Stadium in Dalton. Tuesday, March 31st, Lakeside and Decatur from beautiful, bustling downtown Decatur. And then we're on the road for our final 2 games of the regular season. We go to Blairsville, April the 3rd for East Hall and Union County. And April 14th, Tuesday, Social Circle and Oconee County in Watkinsville for Senior Day, Senior Night there. So that is the SDH Game of the Week schedule as we know it. We are trying to add a couple of other games and a couple of other slots. But right now, the 11-week schedule, we have 8 of our games announced, and it's both boys and girls games from these locations, and you can listen to it live on the app, or you can dial us up later and catch up with the action, as Jason and I call it, from both hither and yon, 2 of these surrounding counties here in the Atlanta area. So that's where we are.
Nice. Looking forward to this. It's going to be fun.
Yes.
We will be all over the state this spring, and we'll get to see soccer in some cool high school locations. Some good rivalries, too. We got lucky with the schedule on a few. A lot of state champions or state finalists from 2019 represented on the schedule. A lot of schools are doing scrimmages this week. A lot of them are doing like their own kind of split squad scrimmage. Man, that's a tough one. A lot of those happen
10 times
this
fast,
week. No, I just tried and I failed. I'm not going to do it again. Those are this week. A lot of other scrimmages are this week. The official start of the schedule is next week, and we'll be on it on Tuesday.
Question to, well, actually, Chris Kilroy came in after discussing the jerseys and the replicas. He said that you're right about replica stars on Adidas kids. He says with the caveat that Atlanta United would put stars on replica jerseys at MBS for an extra $5 because they're fan friendly.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can add it, but they don't produce them with it. And I think I know they've done that. I'm just about positive since Adidas got the league-wide deal. That was always one of the differences between the replica and the authentic. I don't know if Nike does that in other leagues. I don't know if your other smaller kit producers do that or not, but it's typical with Adidas.
Shiva with the question to lead off hour number 2. She wants to know who will score more goals this year, Joseph, Vela, or someone else?
I don't know yet. I'm not ready to make a prediction here. Greg Seltzer did on MLSsoccer.com. He went with the top 5 contenders.
Okay. All right.
So,
I have not seen this, and I have mine, so let's see where we compare.
His number 1 was Vela, and that's completely understandable. The guy scored 34 goals last year. I don't think LAFC is going to turn into a defensive team.
No.
Number 2 is Joseph. We've known what he's done over the years. I don't expect he forgets how to score goals. Number 3, according to Seltzer, is Gustavo Bo. A little bit of a surprise for me. Chicharito 4, Jossie Zardes 5. What's your list?
Okay. I had Joseph, Vela 1, 2. I had Chicharito 3. And then I went out on a couple of flyers. I said number 4 for me. 4 for me is Funes Mori.
He's not in the league yet.
I'm anticipating.
No, he's not in the league yet. And Monterrey would disagree with you when their president or sporting director said last night they've got no offers. So, no, that doesn't count. You need to replace him.
Fine. Rui Diaz at 4.
Okay.
And then number 5.
Come up with it quick.
Well, let's see.
Well,
I was torn. I was going to go with Nico Ladero at 5.
No, you can't have 2 from the same team. And Ladero doesn't score that many goals.
Fine. Josie at 5.
Oh,
or Polito.
Get everybody upset.
Or Polito.
Polito is in my top 5. I think Polito being left out of this list is surprising. I think New England's goals might get spread out a little bit. I don't know if Bo will be in the top 5. Let's go around the league real quick and look at the forwards. So, Joseph is the main guy here in Atlanta. He will be in the top 5. Chicago, you're looking at CJ Sapong, who has scored double-digit goals, but also Robert Beric. And how quickly does he adjust to the league? I don't know what kind of service he's going to get either, so I don't expect a Chicago scorer in the top 5. Don't expect a Cincinnati scorer in the top 5 either. The question is going to be what they do up top, because Yuya Kubo, they've talked about potentially playing him out wide. And if they do, does that mean Darren Maddox becomes the number 9? Does that mean Brandon Vasquez is the number 9? Rashawn Daly is another possibility for Cincinnati. None of them feel like Golden Boot candidates for me. Kai Kamara potentially does. And I think Colorado will be a good team this year. And Kamara has not slowed down with his finishing. I think he'll be a top 10. I don't know if he'll be a top 5. Jossie Zardes is a strong candidate for top 5. I would actually put him in there. I think Columbus is going to be very good. And I think he's going to get a lot of good service from players like Lucas Elarayan, Luis Diaz, Pedro Santos, Darlington Nagbe. I think he is not going to struggle for opportunities. And you can say what you want about Jossie Zardes. The guy has scored goals in this league on a regular basis. And I think with that type of talent around him, he's going to do it this year. So top 5, Zardes is in mine. DC, Ola Kamara, he's got a lot of talent around him, but can he be a top 5? I think he's a top 10.
Yeah.
I think he'll get a lot of good service, but I worry about them defensively, and I worry if they have to get into shootouts, which could help him. But I also wonder if some of this talent around him takes some goals themselves. Julian Gressel has scored, an average of 5 goals per season in his career. I could see that going up depending on his role in DC. Paul Arriola can score goals. Edison Flores can score goals. Jamil Assad can score goals. I think DC might get spread around a little bit more. So top 10 for Kamara. Dallas is the one I just don't know. Like, are they going to go with the Cobra, Andrasic up top? Or are they going to play Jesus Ferreira up top? Is he going to be the guy as a number 9? Or is he going to kind of drop in behind? Are they going to play 2 up top? I just don't know exactly what Dallas settles on. So I'm going to leave them out of the conversation for now. Mauro Manotas, if he's here, if a sale doesn't happen and he is motivated, can absolutely be in the top 10. There's just too many questions about that at the moment for me to put him there. So I think Houston's goals, Darwin Quintero is going to get a share of those as well, and that could cut into it. So I'm going to leave Manotas out of it for now because we don't know what's going to happen with him. Chicharito, absolutely top 5. I think he's going to get good service from Pavon, from Katai, from Leggett. I think he's going to have plenty of opportunities. I think he will do well. Vela will be there, absolutely. He will be the favorite going into the season, because everything's built around him with LAFC. I don't expect that to change. Not putting anybody from Miami on the list yet because that's still a big hole. Minnesota, not putting anybody on the list because don't know what they're going to do. I don't think Mason Toy's that guy right now.
Right.
Montreal, not putting anybody on the list. Maxi Urruti has to figure out how to find the back of the net. He does everything else so well. He works hard. He defends from the front. Runs off the ball are good. He brings others into the play. He just doesn't score enough goals. And if he doesn't do it, does that mean Orji Okonkwo is going to be that guy? Maybe, but he's got to step up. Anthony Jackson-Amel has been there right at the edge of it for so long that you just start to wonder if it's going to happen or not. So Montreal, not putting anybody on the list. Nashville, not putting anybody on the list. I think they have the potential for Daniel Rios to be a surprise. Dominic Badji, Abu Danladi could be near double digits. But I just don't think there's going to be one dedicated guy, because when you're talking Golden Boot, like it or not, this player is going to score the bulk of your team's goals. And teams that have that spread around are not going to have somebody in the Golden Boot chase. I think New England could be a team like that. You know, with Gustavo Bo, with Teal Bunbury, with Adam Buxa, what's it going to look like up top? Carlos Heel will get some goals. Christian Pania will get some goals. I think Gustavo Bo could have an outstanding season, but I don't know if he's a top 5 Golden Boot guy. I'd have him in the top 10. One player we haven't talked about, and I'm surprised wasn't on the list, is Eber.
Yeah, he was out there as a part of my top 10. I didn't have him as a 5.
I'm really leaning to Eber as a top 5. I'm really close. Vela, Joseph are my top 2. Chicharito is there too, no questions there. Zardes is in it, and I feel really good about Jossie Zardes being in that group. And this is where it gets harder, because I think Eber could be in the top 5. I think he's probably got a little more likelihood for it than Kai Kamara, than Ola Kamara, than Amaro Manotas, because we're still wondering what he ends up being this season. So I'm going to put Eber right there at like 5-6 for the moment, and we'll settle in on it. Red Bulls, I think it's going to be spread around, and I don't know if it's White or Barlow or Jorgensen who's going to be the main target, so I'm going to leave them off. Orlando, Dom Dwyer's just got to get consistent, and we'll see if that happens. Could he be in the mix in the top 10? Yeah, I think he could, because I think Orlando will be much better. Kasper Shabilko is another one we have to include in this conversation for Philadelphia. I don't want to put him in there just yet, because you have questions about this midfield for Philly and what ends up getting settled on by Jim Curtin. But Shabilko was one of the best players in the league last year, under the radar in a lot of cases. If he's healthy in the postseason, it's a much more difficult matchup for Atlanta against Philadelphia. So Shabilko, I think he's top 10. I want to see them a little bit first before I settle in on that. Portland is another one we need to see, because reports in Portland, we know Jeremy Abobasi has an injury. He's missing some of preseason. He might be slow to get started in the season. Per Sam Stejko, Felipe Mora of Pumas is headed to Portland, loan with an option to buy. cam guy in 2020. Pumas has posted their goodbye tweet, so he's off. And they're looking to get Mora and Yaroslav Nizgoda. They're trying to get both. So what does that mean for Ebobisse? What does that mean for how they play? They're going to play the two of them up top, and then what's the midfield look like with Valeri, with Jimmy Chara, with Sebastian Blanco? I don't know how the pieces fit if you're going to get both of them, unless you're just not counting on playing both of them on a regular basis. And then Ebobisse, what does that mean for him? So I don't know. Portland, I have no idea who their focal point's going to be. RSL, somebody's got to step up and be that focal point.
Yeah.
Sam Johnson has to do more. Corey Baird, can he become this kind of goal scorer? I'm not sure. I just don't know who it is for RSL. San Jose, it was Wondolowski last year. Is it going to be him again in his final year? Is Andres Rios going to step up? Is Danny Houston going to maybe take that next step for him? It feels like it gets spread around in San Jose, so I don't think there's one guy. Rui Diaz should be in this conversation. And he's another one that's right there in that 5-6 level for me. Pulido is right there too. Josie, you want to see if he can stay healthy enough to mount a golden boot race. I don't know. I think he's top 10 for sure, but I don't know past that. Cavallini, talent-wise, yep. Vancouver, strangeness. I was
going to say, but talent-wise, Cavallini, yes. Talent-wise, around Cavallini, eh?
I just don't know. I really just don't know. So, all right. Since we've workshopped this, for me,
yes,
it is Joseph, it is Vela, it is Chicharito. Those three, good. Then the gaggle is Zardes, Pulido, Eber, Rui Diaz. So 2 out of 4 to get into my top 5. I'm
Diaz,
gonna go. Don't put words in my mouth.
I'm saying those are my words,
and I might disagree. It's been known to happen occasionally. Probably more than that. Anyway, I'm gonna disagree. I'm gonna go Eber and Zardes.
Okay.
I think Zardes for sure. Eber's the one I'm not as sure on. I could definitely see Pulido being the guy. But I'm going to go Eber because I think NYC is going to be pretty good.
Yeah, and then the rest of that top 10 is some combination of Bo, Zardes, Josie, Manotas, Kamara with question marks with Shabilko and Wando.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys who can be double-digit goal scorers this league, but there's also some teams that are going to have more of a spread-out goal-scoring base. So it might not be one guy that steps up to be that primary focal point. That's what you're going to have to wait and see on a few of these. That's where it's a little hard to predict so far. Let's get caught up on some of the rumor mill and some of the signings that have happened. Montreal has brought a right back to the club. Zachary brought Giard. He's coming over from Lyon. They had him on loan last year. Played 13 times, started 9, had an assist, played in the Canadian Championship. They get him on a permanent deal. Young right back. And when you look at Montreal, right now he's the only right back. So that's your main option here. Montreal Impact, looking at their lineup, the front part of it looks pretty good. Aruti, Akwankwo, Jackson Hamel as your forward options. Boyan as your number 10. You get Balu Tabla back on a permanent basis from Barcelona B. Nacho Piatti, even if this is his last year in Montreal, and he doesn't exactly sound too thrilled about it in some statements that have been given to the media. That's one to keep an eye on. Romel Kyoto, Lassi Lapalainen are in this mix as wingers. Holding midfield is very good in Samuel Piet and Safir Taider. So front 6, really good and a lot of options. I mean, right now, if I'm putting the team together, I would go Piet, Taider with Boyan in front of them, I would go Nacho on the left, Balou on the right, or maybe a Okonkwo on the right, and Urruti up top. So Balou or Okonkwo would be my question. But then that means you've got Lapalainen and Kyoto and either Balou or Okonkwo off the bench as good attacking options. The defense is a little scary. Left back right now, Yuka Rayatala is the guy. Jorge Corrales is in this mix too. Rayatala's played in the middle a little bit at times, mainly due to necessity last year. Rudy Camacho, Rod Fani is back. Karifa Yao is back. They signed Joel Waterman from the Canadian Premier League. Is he going to be able to make that jump? That's a big one. And now Brought Giard is your right back. So that's not a very impressive back four.
I was going to say, it doesn't lend itself to a whole lot of optimism.
No, it doesn't. That's going to be the biggest question for Thierry Henry. Can he find a way to improve this back line, whether it's through adding other players or coaching or tactics? Because the front six can be very good. The back four is a little scary. And Evan Bush is good, but there was also a lot of talk about him potentially moving on. It didn't happen. Montreal's just one of the weirdest teams coming into 2020. It's hard to pin them down. It's hard to figure out what to expect. You've got the Henry questions about coming in after not really a convincing performance in France. So, I don't know. Montreal's one of the biggest mysteries coming into the season. Yep. Vancouver's right there with them. I mean, Marc Dos Santos, there's a lot of respect for Marc Dos Santos and what he's done at the second division level. They didn't look good at all last year. Now, they've added winger David Milinkovic. He's coming over on loan from Hull City. Didn't get regular playing time in the last year and a half with Hull. He was at Hearts in Scotland before that. Played in Serie A, Serie C, then went to England. Whitecap sporting director Axel Schuster said this. Yes, of course it hasn't worked out for him at Hull, but that is something that even world-class players have in their profile. Yes, everybody was disappointed. Yes, maybe he lacked a little bit of concentration over the last year, but otherwise there would never have been the chance to get him. In all of our conversations, he has really settled down. He said, yes, I made the wrong decision and now I fall back in my career. I have to convince the people that I'm better than what I showed with Hull over the last year and a half. I want to restart myself and rebuild myself. And we said, and this is Schuster saying to Milinkovic, you're exactly in the right place. Schuster feels like Milinkovic can help provide service to Lucas Cavallini. Little scouting report on him, according to Schuster. He's good at 1v1s and has the quality to make a difference. He has a very good cross and can provide a lot for Lucas Cavallini or whoever plays as the number 9. We have to feed our new number 9. We're building out a 4-3-3 with 2 wingers. It was very important for us to have 2 classic wingers. He can play both wings. He's versatile. Okay. What comes to mind when I hear that is, okay, he lacked concentration.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll be keeping an eye on that. He primarily played on the left side, but he can play on the right. And that's good because you have 2 wingers on the books right now. So you got one on the left, you got one on the right. You got your 2 classic wingers. You're good. Unless you're going to play Jordi Reyna as one of these wingers, which it could happen. Maybe he plays as a 10 behind the wingers. I don't know. But Christian Dajome and now Milinkovic, that's your 2 wingers. They're going to play a 4-3-3, and you're going to have those wingers out wide, okay? So you're going to want somebody under Cavallini to be that number 10, to be a secondary option. Jordi Reyna would likely be that player. Freddie Montero potentially could be that player. I think he's more suited to coming off the bench and spelling Cavallini. You also have Toussaint Ricketts. I think he's more of an option up top as well. So that's the 3 part of it, and the number 10, the holding midfield. You've got some options with Russell Tybert, with Inbom Hwang, Andy Rose. You signed Leonard Owusu You've added Ryan Raposo, Patrick Metcalf. You've got a lot of numbers in the central midfield, but out of Inbaum, it's really not anything that grabs your attention. And in the back line, you have two outside backs, Ali Adnan and Jake Nerwinski. That's your left and right. Ali on the left, Jake on the right. Center backs, likely Eric Godoy, who you got back on a permanent basis, who had a decent year for you, and Derek Cornelius, who's breaking into the Canadian national team. And that's your back line. You have three other options at center back. You have Maxime Crépeau, very good goalkeeper. That's it. So when you start looking at depth charts and you start looking at options, let's say Nerwinski loses his concentration again. You don't have anybody to really slot in. You don't have anybody to push him. That's a problem. Mm-hmm. For a player who's had concentration issues, that's a huge problem. You don't have another classic winger to put in that spot. So you don't have anybody pushing Adnan and Nerwinski. Now, they've been two good players. They don't need a ton of pushing, but you need competition. And Vancouver is just central midfield heavy, forward heavy, center back heavy, nothing out wide. That's going to hurt them at some point. I'm not buying the revival of the Whitecaps just yet.
I was going to ask you, with the expectations on Marc Dos Santos this year, what is a realistic expectation for the Whitecaps?
I don't know what the expectations on Marc Dos Santos are this year. Nobody's really talking about Vancouver. That's what's weird about it is the year they had last year was awful. Nobody's really talking about them in any way. Like that, nobody's talking about pressure on Dos Santos to get in the playoffs or win a certain number of games or anything like that. Nobody's talking about Vancouver at all. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect from them. I think they still have work to do in the window, and then maybe we'll have a better sense of it. Columbus did some work that maybe caught people by surprise. They picked up Fernando Adi off of waivers. Now, they got him, according to Jacob Myers in Columbus and other sources, got him for $205,000 a year. That's pretty good business for a player who's been a designated player, a player who's scored 55 goals in this league. You're getting him for not much. So, and you're not honestly counting on him for all that much because you have Jossie Zardes, you have Jordan Hamilton, who you brought back, you have J.J. Williams, who's an interesting prospect. You've got options up top if you're Columbus. You're not asking Fernando Adi to start probably more than 10 games. You're asking for him to be an option off the bench, and you're asking for him to regain his form. For $205,000, no-brainer. No-brainer at all. It's a smart move by Columbus.
Yeah, and the expectations not necessarily there. Let's see what we can do. Obviously, you reunite Caleb Porter and Fernando Adi. You're hoping for that same kind of lightning in a bottle this go-around with what happened out west. So, all right, line it up and let's see what you can do.
All right, let's get to Chicago, because Chicago's always fun to talk about, right?
Oh, yes.
Always. They have never met a left back that they didn't like, and we mentioned it earlier, Miguel Angel Navarro, number U20 international for Venezuela. He comes into this mix at left back where you already have Jonathan Bornstein, Jeremiah Guchar, and Andre Reynolds II. Let's look at this depth chart for a minute.
Yeah, go for this.
Well, let's start from the front. You've got Robert Beric, you've got CJ Sapong. Okay, two good options. I mean, we'll see about Beric, but the pedigree's good. As a number 10, you've got Jordi Mihailovic. Like it. Right wing, you've got Przemysław Frankowski. Like it. Left wing, Raheem Edwards. There's been a lot of talk about Raheem Edwards being a big deal for a long time. It just hasn't really happened. Right now, he's the only real option on the left wing side, unless you're going to move one of your multiple left backs into a wing option, which is possible. Guchar's played there a little bit. Don't know about Navarro playing there. I don't think Bornstein has the legs for that at this stage of his career. So maybe that's part of the idea with Guchar and Navarro, is that they become depth options at left wing, because Edwards is kind of a converted left back into a left wing anyway. He made that transition a while ago. Central midfield. Alvaro Madron, you signed him late in 2019. Should be a good pickup. Brant Bronico is a solid player in this league. He could potentially play right back, and we'll get there in a second. I think he's best in the holding midfield. Michael Azira, I think he's a step down from Bronico, but he's a solid holding midfield option. Mauricio Pineda, we'll have to see. Right back, you don't have anybody. That's why Bronico might end up there. Center back, you've got Calvo, you've got Kappelhoff, you've got a homegrown in Nicholas Salenina. Left back, you got the 4 options. Goalkeeper, Kenneth Kronholm. You added Connor Sparrow, but it's Kronholm as the number 1. So right now, if you had a match, and we don't know what Rafael Vicky's going to do lineup-wise in terms of shape, but this team seems to point towards some version of a 4-3-3, so let's work from there.
I was going to say, I want to hear this.
If I had to field it today, I would go Beric up top. Mihailovic is the 10 behind him. Frankowski and Sapong as my wingers. And it would just depend on who's more comfortable where. I'd probably go Frankowski on the left and Sapong on the right. I think Sapong isn't quite as versatile on either side as Frankowski might be. So that leaves me with Edwards, Fabian Herbers as reserves. Okay, central midfield. I think you have to go Madron and Azira together behind Mihailovic. And then that means Bronico's your right back, Calvo and Kappelhoff are your center backs. And then you're picking one of your left backs. And today it'd be Bornstein and Kronholm as the goalkeeper. So that means your 18 would include Guchar. Sparrow would be your reserve goalkeeper. So Guchar would be 13. Navarro would be 14. Ebers and Edwards would be 15 and 16. And then you're going to homegrown players as your unproven homegrown players as your final 2 spots. And that's your team. Your team is pretty much 18 players. I think you're actually up to maybe 20 now.
So are you pounding Chicago down the left? Your left? They're right?
No, Bronico's serviceable on the right side. It's not the problem. It's just that team's paper thin. And, I mean, you have questions about Bornstein. He would be the incumbent coming in, but there's questions. Is he the long-term answer? No. Is Navarro? We'll have to see. I mean, on paper, you could see him being a good option, but you know, he's coming in a similar kind of pedigree as Jose Hernandez did, and that didn't pan out here. So we'll see if it's different. Different players, just because they have the same background doesn't mean they have the same trajectory, but there's no guarantee of that. Guchar, I think, is a good player, but it doesn't blow you away. Calvo is good, but mistake-prone at times. Kappelhoff, same thing. So it's not strong, and there's nothing really spectacular about it that worries you. So, you know, that attack is, unless Beric comes in and is scoring goals for fun, there's nothing about that attack that scares you. So I don't even think it's a situation of pounding them down one side. It's just attacking freely because you're not worried about them hurting you. Now, Atlanta will see them in their home opener after they've got a couple games under their belt. We'll get a chance to see what Chicago is going to look like because they're up there in teams with questions. You just don't know exactly what they're going to look like. Let's get into the rumor section because there's quite a few to either update or talk about here. There we go. So, mentioned it when you put Funes Mori in your top 10 or top 5 Golden Boot options. Monterrey would disagree with you because they are saying, and this was last night, Mexican media had it, that there have been no offers for any of their players. That's including Funes Mori. That's including Rodolfo Pizarro, who has been rumored to Chicago for a while. The Pizarro to Chicago rumors have been baffling. Like, none of the major heavyweight reporters in the U.S. have went anywhere with it, but there's been just a constant undercurrent of chatter. So I don't know. I don't know if there's something to it or not. I think his next step is Europe, most likely. And I don't know if Monterrey would want to sell him elsewhere. I don't know if he'd want to go elsewhere if Europe doesn't materialize just yet. One player that it looks like is coming in from Mexico, San Jose has a player announcement coming today. They've teased it. It is, by all accounts, Osvaldo Alanis. He is a center back from Chivas. So he's played with Almeida. He knows what Almeida wants out of center backs. Feels like a really good fit. Monterrey was reportedly in the running to try to bring him in, but he would require a pay cut to go to Monterrey because they've been adding players like crazy. 30 years old, 23 caps for Mexico, debuted in 2014 with Mexico. He's a left-footed center back. He was part of that 2018 CONCACAF Champions League title-winning team under Almeida. So San Jose, with their announcement, everything's pointing to Alanis as the guy.
And for those of you who've been looking at Twitter and seeing the tease from San Jose, putting one and one together, this probably ends up being two.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I don't think there's any risk of that. Report coming from The Athletic. It's following up on Ivis Galarcep's rumor that he dropped over the weekend. RSL have agreed to sell Jefferson Savarino to Atletico Mineiro of Brazil Serie A. $2 million, 40% of any transfer fee down the road. That's a large sell-on clause. His contract was set to expire following this season. I've seen this play out before. So they can't find a long-term deal. He doesn't want to sign one. You got to get something for it. Savarino, reportedly, it was $2 million that they paid to bring him in. So they're going to get their money back. And that 40% sell-on clause, probably about as good of a deal as you can pull off here. If you just can't get the long-term deal done, you've got to move him now. And does that hurt RSL a little bit in the short term? Yeah, because Savarino is a top player, and now you've lost Savarino and Bofo Salcedo. So the wings are looking a little barren right now for RSL, and that was their strong point last year. Corey Baird potentially goes over to the right wing. I could see that. Does Douglas Martinez, does he go over to the left? Does Tate Schmidt earn the job? Does Julian Vasquez earn the job? Does Michael Chang push into a job here? Don't know. The wings are wide open for RSL. They've got Krylock back. They've got Beckerman back. They've got Rusnak back. The spine is good. Good back line, I think. They added Ashton Morgan to it. You've got Zach McMathin as a veteran goalkeeper replacing Nick Raimondo. You've got David Ochoa and Andrew Putna pushing him. I think Ochoa is ultimately going to be the guy, but McMath might hold him off for a while. I just don't know what they do on the wings and the attack. And it's going to be a tricky one for Freddie Juarez to see who emerges from this group of players that I don't think anybody really has a head start outside of Baird if you're going to move him to the wing. If you're going to basically pull the Jordan Morris with Corey Baird, and they have similarities, like it's not a bad idea, that's going to put pressure on Sam Johnson to produce, and it's going to ask Baird to do more from a wide position. I don't know. That might be the way they have to go.
I was going to ask, with Savarino moving on, how much of a handcuff this was, but you broke that down for me. And looking for others to step up with RSL now that you're missing Savarino as well.
All right, Winston Reed of West Ham is reportedly a target for Sporting Kansas City and Nashville. That's according to Simon Jones of the Daily Mail. Sporting Kansas City makes no sense. They have a lot of defenders right now. I don't buy that one. Nashville, even, I don't really get. This doesn't feel like a move that would make a lot of sense. So Winston Reed, he hasn't been playing at West Ham. He's had injuries. He is battling back to fitness to put himself in contention for a first-team recall. All right. 31. So could he play opening day? Maybe. But if you're Nashville, I don't know where he fits. If you're Sporting Kansas City, I don't know where he fits. Those are two clubs that don't normally get pulled out of the pack in a rumor, like a planted rumor by an agent, you know?
Yeah.
That's why this one's weird, because it doesn't make sense for these two necessarily, but they're not clubs that just get linked to players randomly in rumors. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of this.
When you look at the number of matches Winston Reed has played with West Ham, none this year, all competitions. None in 2018-19, all competitions. 19 in all comps in 17-18. 36 in all comps going back 4 seasons. So this one, he's been battling all these injuries all this time. For me, this is a head scratcher regardless of who's in the conversation when it comes to any team in MLS right now.
I mean, center backs, Nashville's got Brian Bekelis, Miguel Nazarit, Dave Romney, Jalil Anibaba, Ken Tribbett, Jack Mayer. They've got 6 guys. And I think you're comfortable with Bekelis. Nazarit's a young up-and-coming player, but you're going to want to get him games. Romney and Anibaba are veterans in this league. Tribbett's got MLS experience. You're not hurting for anything there. And you're not going to go to Bekelis and Reed together, 230-plus starting in the back doesn't seem to fit. Sporting Kansas City, you've got at center back Beasler, Fontas, Barat, Graham Smith, and you signed Roberto Punchek already. You got 5 guys. And I don't know who's playing out of those 2. I would think it's Beasler and somebody, but I don't know who he's paired with. So you're going to add somebody else to it? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm not buying the Winston Reed rumors.
No.
I'm not really buying this one, but it doesn't go away either. Simon Johnson of The Athletic UK is reporting that Pedro has an offer on the table from Inter Miami. The Pedro MLS thing has been going on and 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 even more. So Johnson also reports that there are clubs in Spain and China that are interested. I don't know. If they get Funes Mori in Miami, if they get one of their designated players as that number 9, then they're going to need a winger. Pedro would fit that. I don't know. It would feel like a short-term solution if they get him. I mean, they've got the money to spend. I don't think there's really anybody else in the league that would make any sense for bringing him in. They've got the money to spend. They've got the time. They've got the spot. They could use the short-term blip in terms of quality, because I don't think it would be a long-term signing. I guess the rumor doesn't go away, so you start to wonder how much is actually to it.
Yeah, Nazar Kinsella over at Goal says that it's Inter and NYCFC and Vissel Kobe are the 3 that are being linked to Pedro at present.
See, NYC makes 0 sense. And when I hear that, that's when I think, like, oh, that's just a BS rumor. Because he's not playing at NYC. On the wing right now, you've got Tajori Shradi, who you just re-signed, Mitriza, who's one of the most talented players in the league. You've got Mackay Steven and Medina behind that. You've got Valentin Castellanos, who has played on the wing. It wouldn't make any sense. That's one, when you hear that one, it's like, well, wait a minute. This is just an agent trying to float it out there to get a bigger deal. And, oh, yeah, this is a club that is a big club. So we'll put NYC to this. Miami's the only one that makes sense to me. Because he would start for them. He would come in and start on the right side. You'd start Pellegrini on the left side. You'd have your designated player number 9 up top. You could do different things in the middle. If you wanted to play Pedro there, you could, and play Carranza on the right side. You could play Lee Wynn in the middle. The rest of the team, you've got options. So that right wing would be a spot that you could play him, or you could bring him inside if you don't want to run his legs into the ground. he would play, and he'd be a big addition for that team and give them that veteran leadership in their first year. And maybe you get 2 years out of him. Okay. I mean, I just don't think there's anybody else that makes much sense right now. NYC doesn't make any sense to me.
Kinsella says Beckham is offering Miami to Pedro by offering a good lifestyle in a city with a large Hispanic population.
Yeah, I mean, Miami sells itself. So, you're looking at going to, China or Miami. Miami's pretty nice. Nothing against China, but just saying. I think Pedro would enjoy his time in Miami if that happens. I don't think it's the best signing. It would feel like a little bit of, all right, he's available. We need that spot. Okay, let's do it. I think it's okay. It's not anything spectacular. And then it puts a little more pressure on Paul McDonough, on Diego Alonso to make it work. Because just like you've said, I don't think you would say that Pedro was their first choice.
All right, yeah. So okay, so you want to bring in Pedro? It'd be a cool signing for those who follow the Premier League.
Right now, it's good. I'm saying strategy. If you were looking at this a month ago, no, he wouldn't have been your first choice. They looked at other things, but you get to now, and all right, you could use him. Looks like Chelsea wants to get rid of him. They want to bring in something for him. All right, let's move on. Let's go ahead and bring him in. Let's do it.
Yep.
There's another rumor out there about Kansas City potentially making an offer for another center back, which again just makes it all really confusing.
All the center backs.
Seriously. Leo Lacroix, he is at Saint-Étienne in Ligue 1, 27 years old. Goal.com's reporting that Sporting has made a bid for him. Okay. I guess if they're looking at center backs, somebody's got to go. And there's teams who need center backs, so maybe they're going to make trades within the league. I don't know, but I'm baffled by Sporting Kansas City's transfer rumors right now. You included this one, a player who was here in Atlanta last year, Florentin Pogba, training with Charlton.
Mm-hmm. Charlton right now needs all the help they can get. He's training apparently with their U23 side.
It's essentially their reserves. People have gotten worked up about the age thing. U23s in English clubs are basically just their reserve team.
Right now, Charlton is 6 points clear of safety. They are 20th in the championship, 1 point above Huddersfield Town, who is the last team above the relegation zone. Barnsley's at 24 points, but -4 in goal difference. Charlton Athletic has had issues with their owners in the past, whether or not they're actually going to invest in the club. And so, all right, you want to bring in Charlton, you want to bring in Pogba to help you out, just to keep you above safety. There's a little space. I can understand it. You've lost 3 of your last 6, and there's a reason that you're 20th out of 24.
Yeah, so if this is a move they make, we'll keep an eye on it. They'd have to do it by Friday at midnight, so getting a look at him right now is good. I don't know what Charlton's recruitment strategy is, so I don't know how likely a move is, but if they've brought him in to train, they definitely wanted to take an extended look, so
yeah,
stay tuned there. Anything else on the Twitters we need to hit?
Yeah, when we were discussing player expectations this season, Tafka came in and has said, aside from winning, I'm ready to see some young American players prosper this season. Heinemann has a long-term home and a window to massive playing time. Lennon has a reset chance. Bello has as many minutes as he can earn and handle, and Robinson is one great year from a $10 million transfer.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility. I don't care where they're from, to be honest, and I don't think Tafka meant it that way. I could care less. I just want to see a good team and good players. If they're young American players, cool. If they're young Venezuelan or Paraguayan or Chilean or wherever, I don't care. It's all good. those are all young players who have an opportunity to grow and grow into being big assets for the club. And that's always part of this. It's always a big element to it of bringing in young players, developing them, helping them become as good as they can be, and then either re-signing them or moving them on. Right now, it's been moving them on. I think at a certain point in this league's trajectory, they're going to get to where the cap is large enough and the league is going to be big enough in terms of perception and everything to where players make the decision that, hey, I don't have to go take this deal to go to Europe. I like it here. I'm going to stay. And that's something that Darren Eales has mentioned over the years, that's down the road for MLS, and maybe it's not all that far off in some cases. You know, Joseph Martinez has made it very clear that he's happy and he's not looking to go anywhere. You know, if somebody comes in with $50 million, you're having a different conversation, but he's not looking for a move. Other players have looked for that next contract or that move, and every player is different. MLS increasingly will keep players down the road, but right now, this is a huge element of it. And if you have young players in Bello, Robinson, Hindman, Lennon, who have the potential to earn national team appearances at youth national teams, at senior national team, have an ability to be top players in this league, their value is only going to grow. And that's going to be a big thing. One player who has moved on is Julian Gressel. He has been really hitting the media rounds hard. He was on Extra Time with MLS yesterday, and here's the clip that they have posted on @Extra Time on Twitter.
I don't think I'm a right back, but if it's that, I think that's the consensus in general. Where every coach I've spoken to doesn't really see me as a right back. If there's need be, obviously I play that, but I don't think for an extended amount of time I'll play that too often. I don't think I'm a right back.
I would agree with that. I mean, I don't think he's a right back. And then that gets you to what does DC do? Because they don't have a right back, really. And if they want to get all of these players on the field, somebody probably has to go to right back. Does that mean Paul Arriola becomes a right back? He's played it. It was out of necessity, but he played it. Does that mean you put a right side together of Arriola behind Gressel, and you know that Arriola is going to overlap a lot? That's going to put defensive responsibility on Gressel to drop. That's something that at times has been a struggle. You see some teams that go into an off season with a very specific set of players they're looking for and positions they're looking for. And you see some teams that just go and get good players when they become available. DC feels a little bit like that right now because they've added Gressel, they've added Edison Flores, they added Yamil Assad late last season. You already had Arriola, you already had Ulises Segura, you already had Junior Moreno, Felipe, Russell Canals as more deeper lying central midfielders. You're not going to get all of them on the field.
Right.
That's not even getting into Griffin Yow's development, Emmanuel Boateng, who they got, and then at one point they were shopping already. I don't know how they're going to make this fit. Ola Kamara up top, yes. Edison Flores as a number 10, I think they've settled on that. 2 wingers between Assad, Arriola, Gressel, Boateng would be more of a long shot there. Okay, 2 of the 3. Does the other one, could he go into a number 8 competition, which would put him into the mix with Felipe, Junior Moreno, Russell Canals? And Canals is probably your 6? Maybe. There's been some talk of Canals playing right back. So that would mean it's probably Felipe or Moreno paired either together or with a Gressel, because he's really the only one that looks like a guy who could play as an 8 out of the attacking options. Right back, outside of Canals moving there or Arriola moving there, it's O'Neal Fisher, who's coming back from injury. Chris Adoy-Atcham, who's got 3-4 games of experience. Joseph Mora on the left side, he's the only left back you have. and then Steve Birnbaum, Frederick Briant, Donovan Pines as your 3 center backs. That's all you have. So it's just a collection of mismatched parts right now in DC. And if Gressel's putting it out there that he doesn't think he's a right back, and coaches have told him he's not a right back, so he is removing himself from that conversation. And still, you have to solve that problem. So I don't know what DC is this year at all.
Yeah,
they have some talent. They've included some new talent, but are they a contender? I don't think they can be right now because there's too many big questions.
Shiva, speaking of questions, wanted to know if there was a Kevin Kratz update out there, because she says that I know that he's doing some Toka training clinics here in town.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of that. He hasn't officially announced anything, so I don't know. The fact that he's doing work here in Atlanta means, I think, one, he's just happy in Atlanta. I don't think there's a spot in the Atlanta United squad for him. It doesn't seem to be something that is going to happen, and there's really not the playing time. I mean, we've talked about the central midfield and how crowded it is now with the addition potentially of a number 8 that's been mentioned multiple times. So it doesn't feel like there's a spot there. And he's at a point with the injuries he's had that maybe he's just decided to either wait and see if anything else comes up. So he doesn't want to announce a retirement yet, but the fact that he's doing other, coaching and training would lend you to think that maybe his playing days are wrapping up.
We are caught up on the Twitter, sir. What else is on your mind?
That's about it. We'll get more into the U.S. men's national team as the week goes on. They play Saturday against Costa Rica. It's a 3:55 kickoff on ESPN News and Unimas and TUDN. The roster has been trimmed a little bit. Jordan Morris, Christian Roldan have went back to Seattle for preseason. JT Marcinkowski's back to San Jose. Mentioned that Jesus Ferreira is a player that a lot of people are looking at this year. He's got his citizenship nailed down. He is committed to the United States, according to Ivis Galarcep. Ivis said that he informed U.S. Soccer that decision on Monday. So he could potentially play in this match, but Berhalter talked about it yesterday. I think there's still some paperwork to be done as he's finalizing his citizenship. So he might not technically be eligible, although it's a friendly, so I think he would be. I don't know why the paperwork thing came up from Berhalter, but he might not be in that mix yet, and that's okay. He's a young player. But the fact that he's chosen to represent the United States is a good thing. We'll get into it later this week, too. The women's Olympic qualifying starts tonight. The men's is going to be in March, and Berhalter's been asked some questions about what that squad could look like and how complicated it's going to be to get players released, because the whole tournament is not inside of an international window. So it's going to be very tricky to see who's available and who's not. And we'll have to see how Berhalter, Jason Kreis, U.S. Soccer manage that situation. And Atlanta could be in that mix because Brooks Lennon, I'm just about positive, is age eligible for that. I think George Bello would be a stretch, but not completely out of the realm of possibility. Miles Robinson could be in that mix as well, but I'd be shocked if he was part of the Olympic qualifying tournament. So a lot of times with the Olympic qualifiers, you'll see, you don't want to say a lesser team, but you'll see some players left out of it that might go to the Olympics. Ezequiel Barco with Argentina is a prime example of that. Could you see a Christian Pulisic at the Olympics this summer? Possibly. The Olympics is not a must-release tournament for clubs, so that creates some drama. But it feels like some countries will go with their absolute best team that is age-eligible, and some will have guys who have already established themselves with the senior national team not be part of an Olympic squad. And then some guys just aren't released. So it's a really weird competition. The qualifying tournament will be that too. So we'll get into those things as they develop this week. We'll keep you posted on all the rumors and innuendo because there's going to be more and more and more. There's more games today, too, and we'll keep you posted on the outcomes of those starting tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, on SDH. Thank you for listening. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata.